Hello everyone. Today I will show you how we can create Windows virtual machine by using Microsoft Azure. Without further delay, we will move for the session. So now you can look at my Microsoft Azure dashboard, right? So once you have Microsoft Azure account, once you log into your Microsoft Azure account, this is the dashboard you can look at, right? So on this dashboard, yeah, now our task is there are, I will give a brief introduction. This is a side menu, right? From this menu also you can find out different Microsoft Azure services, right? If you want to create virtual machine, you can click these options one way. Another way, maybe you can search here uh, virtual machines, right? So if you search here as a virtual machine, by using this one also, you can find out virtual machine creations. Uh, Other options, just click this create a resource options. Once you click this create a resource option, you can notice something called virtual machine, right? The first option, maybe the virtual machines, right? So once you click these virtual machines, right? So yeah, it will redirect you to the virtual machine creation page. So if you look at here in this window, we need to do all the configurations, right? So if you are creating your Windows virtual machine, what are the different configuration? What is the RAM size? What is the storage unit? So what is the network? Right. So all the aspects, all the configurations of your Windows virtual machine, we are configure throughout these menus, right? So initially, right? So you look at here, right? So you look at the first option, right? Yeah, the basics, right? So this is a basic menu, right? In the basic menu, it will ask you for the subscription, right? So subscription in the sense, while we are using Microsoft Azure, so whatever the resources we are consume, uh, we need to pay for the services we consume from Microsoft Azure, right? For that one, we need to create an account, right? So I already have a Microsoft Azure student subscription. By using that one, I will conduct the session. Those who are using your personal account, you need to create your Microsoft account, right? By integrating your debit cards or your bank account, your credit cards or debit card, you need to connect with this account. Then only it will allow you to do the virtual machine creations, right? So first thing, you need to select your subscription, right? If you have more than one subscription, you can look at the subscription. You can select one of the subscription you are using for this virtual machine creation, right? The important thing here, if you are selecting one subscription for that virtual machine, right, they will deduct that amount, deduct the credits. So if you are using that virtual machine, they will deduct a small amount of money based on your utilization of the virtual machine. For that utilization, they will deduct the money from the subscription you are selecting, right? So here I am selecting my one and only subscription. Then here we need to create some resource group, right? So the resource group in the sense, right, let's say uh, you have one subscription. Under your subscription, you are working on different project, different industry projects, or different projects you are actively participate, right? So if you are managing different resource group, right, let's say we are working on three different projects. So if you are creates three different resource group, it's easy to filter the resources, right? Let's say we have three projects. In three projects we have three different virtual machines, right? All three virtual machines are Windows virtual machine. Let's say in my project one, I have a 8 GB memory for my virtual machine. Right. In my second project also, I have a 8 GB memory. So once I create two virtual machine, right, after certain time, right, sometime I need to upgrade my virtual machine, right? My project one's virtual machine, I need to do some upgrades, right? At that time, right? So it's easy. If you are create separate resource group for your virtual machine, it's very easy for you to easily find out which virtual machine I need to do the customization, right? If you want to increase the size of your RAM for the project one, let's say if you are separately maintain one resource group, it's easy for you to pick up that exactly the same virtual machine we need to do the customization. Otherwise, what will happen if we are using the same resource group for all the virtual machines, right? So we are confusing, right? Which virtual machine for which project? Likewise, it's a confusing, right? To avoid those misconfigurations, so to avoid those complexity, we can create separate resource group. It's also helpful to monitor the costs, right? So maybe later, if you are working on a project, if you want to monitor or if you want to evaluate the cost consumption for that particular resource, by using the resource group, we can easily find out the suitable resource group, right? So now here I'm creating a new resource group, or if you have an existing resource group, you can select from that one also, right? So if you, okay, I will create one resource group here, right? You need to provide a name for your resource group, right? So here I am giving okay, computer vision project. My resource group, I am giving a name, computer vision, right? Computer vision project, vision project. Okay, let's say I'm doing one computer vision project. For that one, I'm creating a separate resource group, right? So I'm giving a name for my resource group, computer vision project, right? So now I can select all, by default, it will select the computer vision project, right? The next thing, right, after I'm selecting that resource group, now I need to provide a name for my virtual machine, right? So while we are creating virtual machine, we need to provide the name for our virtual machine, right? I'm giving a name, okay, yeah, okay, I'm giving a name, Suja PC1, right? So this is the name of my virtual machine, right? The next thing I need to select the regions, right? So if you look at here, we have different regions. The Microsoft Azure, they inbuilt their data centers in different regions all over the world, right? So maybe you can, different regions, they have different facilities, different features, right? So that is the advantage, right? Maybe you are selecting East US, or maybe you are selecting Asian region, or whatever the region, depending on the region, their features, their availability or their functionalities are little bit varying region to region, right? So maybe you, if you want, you can select different regions, right? So there are different regions we have. Okay, I will select the East US. By default, I will select the East US region, right? The next thing, I need to select the availability options, right? So in each region, we have different zones, right? The availability zones, right? So in this virtual machine, I'm creating a very low level configured machine, right? It means I'm creating a virtual machine with less amount of resource consumption. It means while you are using this virtual machine, we need to spend very small amount of money for this virtual machine, right? So for that purposes, right? So maybe here different options are there, right? So sorry, we have different options are there, right? So the zone options, we can select availability zones or virtual machine scale set, right? Depending on your requirements, if you are developing different projects based on the project, or if you are planning to deploy your servers, or if you are planning to deploy your e-business sites, depending on the requirements, you can select different options, right? So up to now, I'm selecting no infrastructure redundancy is required, right? So these are basic project. So that's why I'm creating very less resource utilized virtual machine, right? So that's why I'm selecting no infrastructure redundancy is required, right? So the next thing, security type. Here also we can select different options, right? So starts trusted launching virtual machine. So standard virtual machine, the standard virtual machine is the very basic level of security they are using for this virtual machine, right? So I'm selecting the standard option, right? So if you want more security types, you can select advanced options, right? The trusted launching virtual machine, right? The next thing, we need to select the operating system, right? So which operating system we need to install on this virtual machine, right? Previously, I mentioned I'm creating you how to create a Windows virtual machine. So in this drop down menu, we can select the available virtual machines. Otherwise, right? So here there are different virtual machine. Windows 10 or Windows 11 Pro is there, right? Otherwise, you can select see all images option. In this option, you are list out there are hundred thousands of these images, operating system images, right? Also you have your own images, right? Already you have created some your personal operating system images with some personalized softwares. Maybe you can select this option, right? You can select this option here. If you have any your own virtual machines images, then you can use that one. I don't have any up to now, right? So here I'm using this one, right? So already inbuilt there are thousands of virtual machines are there, right? So I'm selecting this one, right? If you want, you can select Ubuntu or Red Hat or Debian or whatever, right? There are different this OS images are there. You can CentOS OS or Oracle, Linux. So there are 669 virtual images are there, right? So here we are selecting Windows 11, right? So, okay, I'm selecting Windows 11, right? I'm select this option, right? Okay, this one, right? So I'm selecting, okay, if you find out here in Windows 11, there are different Pro Enterprise versions, right? There are so many different versions are there. You can select whatever you own, right? So let's say I'm using that, okay. Also, if it is a 32-bit or 64-bit, you can select, right? So I'm selecting that, okay, enterprise version, right? So I'm selecting this enterprise version. Right now, it will automatically select this version, right, of my operating system, what I want, right? So here automatically it will we select 64 bits, so it will automatically enable, right? The next thing we need to select what is the size of the RAM I want, right? How many virtual CPUs I want. So for that option, we need to select the size menu, right? In the size menu, we need to select, right? By default, it create one virtual CPU and 3.5 GB memory. The RAM space is 3.5 GB. One virtual CPU is selected. So if you want, you can select different, right? So let's say here two virtual CPUs, 4 GB memory, four virtual CPUs, 32 GB memory, likewise, right? So if you look at here within the bracket, it mentioned the cost, right? So let's say if you are running one virtual CPU 3.5 GB memory machine for 1 month, 24 into 7, if you continuously run this virtual machine for 1 month, you need to pay $53.29, right? So likewise here, if two virtual CPU, 4 GB memory, $30 per month, right? So per month in the sense continuously, if you are running this virtual machine, right? 24 into 7, you are running for 30 days, you are need to pay $30.37 per month, right? Let's say I'm creating this one, right? Two virtual CPUs and 8 GB memory, right? Two virtual CPUs and 8 GB memory is more than enough for my basic requirements, right? The important thing here, if you are running this virtual machine for 30 days, 24 into 7, you need to pay $70.07, right? It means you are running the virtual machine, right? If you are, let's say you are working, let's say every day you are working 8 to 12, 4 hours, right? So then after the 4 hours, you shut down the machine, you don't need to pay that much amount of money, right? So keep in mind, this cost is when you are continuously running this virtual machine 24 into 7 for 30 days, right? So otherwise, let's say every day you are working 4 hours, you don't need to pay that much of amount. In the last configuration, I will show you what is the cost they detect for 1 hour if you are running this machine, right? So up to now, if you're running 30 days, 24 into 7, you need to pay $70, right? So after I'm selecting this option, right, if you want, you can enable the hibernate option. Now we need to create the username and password for my account, right? So, okay, for username, I'm giving my name, right? So while you are logging your virtual machine, you need this name, right? So this is the username for your virtual machine, right? I'm creating my name, Aslam Suja, as my username, right? I'm giving you one password here. Let's check. Okay, I will create a username and password. Right now, my password is okay. Right? So the next thing, right? Normally, if you are creating a Windows virtual machine, we need to access the virtual machine. For that purposes, we need to enable some ports, right? So normally, if it is a Windows virtual machine, we are enabling remote desktop port, right? RDP port, right? So here, we don't need to do anything by default. They are enabled this RDP port. So RDP port in the sense that is a remote desktop protocol, right? The remote desktop port, right? So throughout these remote desktop port, we need to access our virtual machine, Windows virtual machine, right? If you fail to enable this RDP port, you cannot access your virtual machine, right? Then I can confirm that I have the Windows 10 license with for my virtual machine. Right now, we are configure the basic things. In the basic things we configure, now we need to click the next option. Next option in the disk size, hard disk, right? So for that virtual machine, we need to configure the hard disk options, right? So if you go to the disk option, it will ask you whether you need to encrypt the host. Encrypt means all the files are encrypted and stored in the hard disk. So for the basic purposes, we don't need that one. Right now, we need to select the disk size of the virtual machine. By default, it create 127 GB disk size, right? So if you want, you can increase more spaces for your virtual machine, right? Up to sorry, if you look at here, up to 2 terabytes you can create the virtual machine disk size. So for these purposes, I think that 127 GB is more than enough, right? I can keep as the default disk size, right? The next thing for the hard disk type, whether you are using HDD or whether you are using SSD or whether you are using premium SSD, right? In cloud platform, we have different types of disks, right? Premium SSD means that the performance is high, but anyhow, if you are using premium SSD, the cost they are detect for your virtual machine is varying from the hard disk or standard SSD, right? So if you are, let's say if you read the instruction, premium SSD best for production and performance sensitive workload, right? The standard SSD best for web servers likely using enterprise application, right? Better I can use standard SSD. That is more than enough for my basic machine functionalities, right? The next thing, uh, yeah, I need to maintain key management. You don't need to do any key management, right? So these are the basic configuration we need to do in the disk, right? Sometimes, right, we have already created some disk. We are keeping some file with the Microsoft Azure. For by using this option, you can select the existing disk also, right? So here you need to select attach an existing disk, right? So once you select this option, attach an existing disk, right? It will show you if you have any disk available, right? So already I have some disk available, right? The disk research disk. So if I want, I can add this disk for this virtual machine, right? It means already we are creating some hard disk that contain different files. So if you want to attach that hard disk also to my virtual machine, I can use this option. So for initial stage, I don't need this option, right? So I can keep as the default, right? So now if you want, you can do some advanced features, right? So yeah, you don't need to do any configuration in the advanced feature. After you are setting that disk configuration, now we need to move for the networking, right? We need to create some IP addresses, right? To access the virtual machine, we need a public IP address. So here, maybe here also you can, let's say already you have some subnets, right? You have create some networking component. You have create some network. So inside the network, if you want to attach this virtual machine, that is a different scenario, right? So here, if you want, you can select the existing virtual network, V networks, right? Otherwise, by default, they are creating one network. By default, it will create a network for you. Just if you don't need to do anything, right? They are creating a virtual network. They are creating subnet, right? They are creating one public IP by default, right? So if you want, you can use your existing networks, right? Let's say you in your organization you already create some network. Inside the network you need to assign this virtual machine, that one also, that configuration also you can do by selecting these options, right? So it means you are create, let's say you are create new virtual machine. Once you click this new create new networking option, then you can define what is the CRI notation, what is that, how many subnets you know it, what is the all the networking configuration you can do by using this create new option. Otherwise, as a beginner, right, you can select the network by default, right? So once you go to this window, by default it will create the public subnet and public IP addresses. So no need to do here anything, right? So that network interface card, NIC network security group, right? The basic. If you want, you can select the advanced option. They give more advanced functionalities for your network interface cards, right? Yeah, the next thing, you don't need to do anything. Maybe if you look at this option, delete public IP and network interface card when delete the virtual machine, right? If you enable this option, what will happen? Sometime we are creating the virtual machine while we are creating while sorry, sometime we will delete the virtual machine. While we are delete the virtual machine, automatically that public IP address, the network interface card also deleted when once you enable this option. Otherwise, what will happen? You need to manually delete the public IP address or network interface card. Why they are giving this type of options, right? So while you are creating a virtual machine, right, we are separately creating the computing resource, the RAM and processor, right? We are creating disk, right? We are creating network. We are creating network interface card. So all each component as a Microsoft Azure, they will deduct very small amount of money, 0.001. Likewise, they will deduct for all the all the components, right? So if even sometimes you forgot to delete that public IP and network interface card, it will continuously deduct small amount of money in your account. To avoid these type of things, that cost efficiency, they are enable these type of functionalities. So if you click this option, it will automatically, once you delete the virtual machine, automatically that public IP address related to that virtual machine and the network interface card resources also automatically deleted if you click this option. Right, then if you want, you can do the load balancing for your virtual machine. Right, up to the initial level, you don't need to worry about this load balancing. Just keep as the base level, that default configuration. Now you can select the management option. Once you click the management option, you can do some Microsoft Entra ID or some identification purposes, right? So that is the net security aspects you can select. Also in the management option, you can auto shutdown, right? Auto shutdown option in the sense, let's say morning 8 o'clock you are start the work. Anyhow, you have a huge workload. So because of that workload, sometimes you forgot to shut down the virtual machine. But maybe if you set this option, enable auto shutdown for your virtual machine every day, right? If your virtual machine run, if you set a time duration at the time, let's say if I set 7 p.m. every day, if you want, you can shut down the machine, right? So every day 7 p.m. it will check whether the virtual machine is running or not. If the virtual machine is running, automatically it will shut down the virtual machine, right? This is the functionality we are using for auto shutdown, right? So up to the initial level, I don't need to do any auto shutdown option. Also, if you want, you can back up the resources in your virtual machine. For that one, you can enable this option, right? So the initial level, just forget about the backup options, right? Site recovery, guest OS upgrade, right? Your operating system, we are selecting Windows 11 operating system. We don't need to manually update the operating system. By default, if you select this auto update option, it will automatically update your operating systems, right? So these are the management configurations, right? So the next one is a monitoring, right? So if you want to monitor your virtual machine by using log files or by using some software, if you want to monitor, then you can enable some options here, right? Boot diagnosis. If you have any issues while you are booting your menu, it will monitor the things and it will record the log files, right? So you don't need to do those things, right? The health of that uh, virtual machine, right? So you don't need to do anything in this advanced of that monitor option, right? We will next move for the advanced option. Here also, if you want to do some configuration, right? So advanced configuration, right? So as a beginner's level, just forget about these things, right? So if you want, you can move later for the advanced facilities, right? Then if you want to install some extension, you can select here, right? So these are the advanced option. While we are installing your operating system, we need to install some of the software or some of the extension we are select by using this option, right? The next one is a tag option, right? The tag option also just like a tag to identify the resources, right? So if you want, you can create a resource tags, right? Let's say maybe later you are using one resource group. In that resource group, you have 5 to 10 virtual machines, right? So then it's very difficult to find out which virtual machine for which purposes, right? So if I'm using one different tags, right? Let's say your provider name, right? Let's say I'm creating one tag, this virtual machine for pre-processing, right? In computer vision project, I need a virtual machine for pre-process. I'm creating pre-process, the value for that one 101 or something, right? Likewise, I'm giving a tag for this resource. Right now, the next option after the tags, just we can review, right? So once you successfully do the configuration, it will review all the configurations and it will show you the green tick. If you get the green tick, in the sense you are passed, your configurations are okay, you are ready to deploy the virtual machine, you are ready to deploy your Windows virtual machine. That is the meaning of that one, right? So now we are getting the validation pass, right? Sometimes if you do some mistakes or if you are failed to do all the basic requirements, basic required configuration, you are getting a validation fail. Right now, I did all the basic uh, configuration. Let's say basic configuration in the sense if I fail to select the disk, or if I fail to select the operating system, if I fail to select the network interface or network public IP and subnet, it will create this type of validation fail message, right? Otherwise, you don't need to do more advanced thing, right? We have certain basic requirements. I will show you all the basic requirements here. Now the validation is passed, right? Now, if you look at here, this is the cost. If I run this virtual machine per hour, right? Let's say previously we are getting $70 or something when we are running that virtual machine 24 into 7 continuously for 1 month, right? But here they are giving for 1 hour cost, right? If you are running this virtual machine for 1 hour, you need to pay $0.096, right? So it means let's say $0.1, right? So approximately 30 rupees in Sri Lankan rupees, right? So approximately one USD is 300 rupees in Sri Lanka. So based on that one, so if you need to run, if you are working with this virtual machine for 1 hour, you need to spend minimum of 30 rupees, 30 Sri Lankan rupees you need to spend to run this virtual machine, right? Let's say if you're running 4 hours per day, you need to spend only 120 rupees to do your works, right? So that is a benefit, right? Let's say now you are planning to do a mobile application with Android Studio, right? Just think about as a beginners, right? So if you are working with Android Studio with this project, right? Definitely we need a minimum of 8 GB memory, right? That's a normal requirement, right? So it will consume huge amount of memory, Android Studio. So minimum you need a 8 GB RAM. If you have 12 GB or 16 GB, that is more advanced, right? For that is the basic requirements if you are running the Android Studio project, right? Normally, maybe sometime as an undergraduate students, you don't have that much of a computing resource in your laptops or PCs. So at the time, what is the solution? We need to purchase a new laptop, right? That's a normal thing. But if you are using this type of cloud facilities, you don't need to purchase a laptop, right? Directly, you are creating a Microsoft Azure account, then you can do the work. Let's say you have a group project or you have an individual project, you need to develop a mobile application by using Android Studio, right? So that project only for 1 month, right? So for that 1 month utilization, we cannot purchase one new laptop, right? That is a you need to spend 300,000 or 300 more than that one to purchase a 16 GB RAM laptop, right? But if you are using this type of Microsoft Azure cloud computing, because of that, you are spending very less amount of money. Let's say we are spending around 3,000. With minimum of 3,000, we can efficiently utilize the cloud resources and we can complete the project, right? Because of this type of virtual machine, right? That is a benefit we are getting as undergraduate or students. You are getting this type of benefits because of this virtual machine, right? So $0.096. Let's say if you approximate $0.1, right? It means 300. It means 30 rupees, right? So 30 rupees you need to spend for 1 hour, you need to run the machine, right? Once you successfully pass the validation, right now just click the create the resource option, right? Once you click the create resource option, right? So it will take 2 to 3 minutes to deploy, right? If you click the create option, what will happen? It will starting the machine deployments, right? Your machine is deployed in the Microsoft Azure data centers, right? So throughout this notification panel, you can find out what is the progress, right? The deployment in progress, right? It means based on the configuration you put, your virtual machine is deploying in the Microsoft Azure data center, right? Once you successfully deploy, you are getting a notification, your resource is ready to access, right? Okay, we will wait 1 minute until the deployment is success, right? It take 2 to 3 minutes for the deployment, right? So if you look at here in that menu, it will show you these resources, the network resources, the other resources are completed, only the compute resource is going on, right? So other resources, they are successfully deployed, only this functionality is running. So we will wait a few minutes until the deployment is success, right? Okay, now I can get the notification your deployment is completed, right? So I get a notification your deployment is success, right? So it means I have successfully deployed my virtual machine, right? So now in this menu, I can click this, go to the resource option, right? So this is my virtual machine, right? So if you click that, go to the resource option, you can find out the basic information about my virtual machine, right? This is one way we can find out the details of my virtual machine, right? Other thing, let's say just you can go to the Microsoft Azure. You can select something called all resources, right? You can select something called all resources, right? In this all resources menu, once you click this button, right? Now, if you look at here, just we are creating one virtual machine, but here we have different resources they are created for this virtual machine, right? So if you look at here, they are creating network interface, they are creating virtual network, they are creating security groups, right? Default security group, they are creating public IP, they are creating virtual machine, they are creating separate disk, the network watcher, the monitoring tool. So just we are creating only one virtual machine, but they are generating seven resources for those virtual machine, right? So these are the resources related to that particular virtual machine we are creating few minutes ago, right? So now in this all resources, we need to find out the virtual machine. So this is the option we need to this is the virtual machine option. Once you click this virtual machine option, right here, we can look at the basic information about the virtual machine, right? Let's say if you want to do any, let's say, yeah, now if you go here, right? So if you look at these okay, I will show you again. Go to the Microsoft Azure, right? Just search all resources. Once you select all resources, you can find out this option. By clicking this option, you can look at all the resources related to this virtual machine. Right here, we need to find out where is my virtual machine option. So here, this is my virtual machine option. Once you select this virtual machine option, right, I can notice so many different things, right? So now what will happen here? While I deploy the machine automatically, it will now my virtual machine is running, right? So my virtual machine is running, my Windows virtual machine is running. So if you want to use this option to restart the machine, let's say sometime you need to stop the virtual machine, right? You can click this option to stop the virtual machine, right? These capture options, let's say you are creating your virtual machine, you install some softwares, maybe after that you are creating your own disk image. For that option we are using this capture option, then we can select the create image. If you are capture and click this image option, you can create your own disk images if you want, right? So up to now we don't need that options, right? So if you want, you can click delete the virtual machine, right? So there are so many information. The basic configurations are there, right? Yeah. Now let's say the next thing we need to access this virtual machine by using RDP port, right? Remote desktop port, RDP port. For that one, we need a by default in Windows we have a remote desktop tool, right? So in Windows by default we have a remote desktop tool. By using that remote desktop tool, we can connect this Windows virtual machine. For that one, we need only the public IP address of the virtual machine. Also, this is the public IP address for my virtual machine. You just copy the public IP address. Then I need to know the username of my virtual machine and password of my virtual machine, right? So these are the configurations that basic the properties of my virtual machine, right? The computer name Suja PC1, that is my computer name, right? What is the operating system I am using, that virtual machine generation, what is the bits and the public IP address. Here also they are mentioned the public IP, the private IP address, right? So sometimes, right, the benefits of this cloud virtual machine. Let's say you are creating 8 GB memory virtual machine now, right? Unfortunately, because of some reason, now you need to upgrade the size of your virtual machine, right? Let's say now for some purposes, I need 16 GB memory. So just click this option, right? So once you click this size option, right, then you can do the configuration. You can upgrade the virtual machine. The important thing here, before you can upgrade the size of your RAM or any configuration, better you can shut down the virtual machine. By now, the virtual machine is running, right? First, you can stop the virtual machine. After that, you can, if you want, you can do the upgrade for your virtual machine, right? Let's say if you want four virtual CBN, for virtual CPU plus 16 GB memory, just you can select this one. Once you select the resize option, it will scale up your virtual machine. If you want, you can scale down. Likewise, that is a benefit of cloud computing, right? So we can easily customizable, scale up the resources if you want, right? If you don't want, you can scale down the resources, right? So let's say if you want, you can click this option and it will easily resize your size of your virtual machine, right? So that is a benefit. Likewise, all the resources we can do any customizations, not only the disk, all the functionalities, all the aspects uh, we can do all the resources. We can do the customization. If you want to do networking customization, if you want to do all the aspects, we can do the customization, or we can enhance the features, right? So that is the benefit of with Microsoft Azure cloud computing, right? So that is the one facilities of cloud computing, right? So if you are dealing with cloud computing, we can easily scale up the resources and scale down the resources, right? So maybe if you want to look at all the uh, properties configuration as a JSON file, just click this window right here. You can click this JSON view. Then it will show you all the configuration we did for this virtual machine, right? Sometimes we forgot the username of the virtual machine. Unfortunately, we forgot the username of the virtual machine, right? So if you want, you can download this virtual machine, or you can copy this virtual machine, right? So just click this JSON view option. Then it will show you all the configuration related to this virtual machine. Like let's say if you we can copy this configuration, and you can utilize this same configuration if you are creating in the future. If you want to create some same featured machine, you can use this JSON file to create the virtual machine, right? Let's say sometime you forgot some of the information about your virtual machine. At the time also, you can use this uh, JSON view, right? So let's say I forgot my username of my virtual machine. So just you can search as a username, right? Let's say I can copy, right? Just I can copy, then I can open this in a notepad, then I can easily find out the information I want, right? Yeah, I will share the screen, right? Now I can copy that resources, right? Okay, wait a minute. Yeah. Now this is the dashboard, right? So from this one, right? So JSON view, right? I can find out all the configurations, right? So now I can select all, right? Just copy, right? Then I can open this in my notepad window, right? I will paste, right? So now I'm now open my notepad window. On that notepad window, right? Yeah, on the notepad window, right? So I can copy that JSON file, right? Now if I want to find, right, the username, right? Just look at here. This is the admin username, right? So even sometime while we are create the virtual machine, we forgot the username of the virtual machine, right? Then we can easily find out the username, right? So go to your configuration. This is the username of my virtual machine, right? Aslam Suja is my username for my virtual machine, right? By using that one, I can easily find out the username. Similarly, if you forgot some other features, you can easily find out with the help of these JSON files, right? Now, yeah, now this is the time we can try to connect to this virtual machine. Right now, how we can connect to this virtual machine? Right, just to connect this virtual machine, I need a remote desktop monitoring tool, right? So I'm searching remote desktop connection in my start window. So this is the tool. Once I open this remote desktop monitoring tool, here it will ask you what is the IP address of my virtual machine, right? So I can easily find out the IP address of virtual machine, this one. So now I can copy paste this IP address, right? So now, yeah, now here I can provide the username of my virtual machine. The username is Aslam Suja, right? So once I provide my IP address plus the username, right? Now, if you want, I can serve this credential. Otherwise, just I can click the connect button. Right now, it will do the connection to my public IP address plus my username. So now I can provide the password for my Windows virtual machine. Right? I can give my password. Right, so now if I click OK, if I correctly enter the password, right, the initial time it will ask you to install the certificate of my RDP ports, right? So if I click yes, now I will connect it to the virtual machine, right? So actually now I am accessing the virtual machine what I created by using Microsoft Azure, right? So now this is the fresh operating system, right? So while you installed Windows 11 operating system in your laptop, now the initial welcome window is opening, right? So yeah, it take 1 or 2 minutes to the initial time to the configuration. It takes some time, right? So you can wait, right? So I don't need to do any other configuration. Just I click next and I accept. Right now, my virtual machine is okay. I am ready with my virtual machine, right? So now I have a yeah, Windows 11 virtual machine, right? So now you look at the window is not my local PC's window. This is the virtual machine I created. Right. If you want, you can check the configuration. Right. We are creating 8 GB memory virtual machine. Right. So if you look at here, once you click this option, right. So this is the processor, right? The 8 GB memory, right? We are using the disk 127 GB, right? So likewise, you can look at that basic functionalities, right? Let's say, yeah, I will show you, right? If you want to, if you want, you can, I will show you the speed of the internet connections, right? For this virtual machine, right? Okay, I will skip more configuration. Just directly, I will go for here, right? So now I will show you what is the internet speed of my virtual machine, right? So I am searching internet speed checker, right? So once I open this internet speed check, right? So just if I click start button, right, you can realize what is the speed of this virtual machine, right? So because this is in United States, East US region, so this is the download speed of the virtual machine, 1600 or 700 MBs per second, right? That is the speed of this connection, right? So yeah, this is the upload speed up to 1 GB, 1.5 GB, the upload speed of the internet connections, right? Okay, this is the speed, right? Normally, if you are dealing with the local machine, sometime we have a software files with more than 1 or 2 GBs, right? The simple example, Android Studio, right? If you look at here, the Android Studio, right? Sometime we need to spend huge amount of time to download this Android Studio, right? Android Studio download, right? So when we are downloading the Android Studio, it take huge amount of time to download the software. Also, it take huge amount of time to install the packages and Gradle everything. It take huge amount of time. So once I click here, within 5 seconds, I can download these Android Studio, right? So just if I click this option, right? Yeah, if I click this option, right? So yeah, it takes very less time, right? So if I read the terms and conditions, if I read the agree, right? So now if you look at here, just look at the file, 1.2 GB file, it will download in 30 seconds, right? So within 30 seconds, we can download. Similarly, within 1 or 2 minutes, we can do the installation, all the configuration uh, uh, in this Windows virtual machine. If you are compare with that the physical machine, the laptops and PCs, what we have, that takes, even for download, it takes half an hour, 1 hour we need to spend. After that, for the installation process, it take 1 hour or 2 hours, and all the Gradles and all the library installation, it take huge amount of time. That is a barrier for those people who are doing with some software development. So because of this type of Windows virtual machine, we can easily we can simplify the task, and within few minutes, within 5 minutes, we can set up all the environment for software development. Then we can do starting the coding, right? So that is one of the benefits we are getting throughout this virtual machine, right? So yeah, now I can close this window. Actually, this is my virtual machine window. If you want, you can install the software, the same Windows 11 virtual machine here, right? Okay, that's all about the session, right? I will stop sharing, right? So yeah, now maybe those who have interesting on these, maybe you can practice to create a Windows virtual machine based on this tutorial. Also, you can share this video with your friends who are interesting to learn Microsoft Azure basic fundamentals with practical, right? Maybe next class I will show you some other important. Next week maybe I will show you some other topics, and I will share some uh, practical things how we can do with Microsoft Azure. Thank you for your time. We will meet on another session. Goodbye.